we're not gonna, we'll have everybody look at your agenda. We need a motion to approve tonight's agenda, please.
I make a motion to approve the agenda.
All right, we have a motion.
Oh, I didn't push this.
Roseanne,
I'll second it.
we have a second by Jackie Duncan. All in favor of that? Ayes have it. Okay, we'll have to skip the approval of the previous minutes, and we'll move on to number 4 on our topic, which is public comments. Do we have anybody in the audience with anything they want to bring up for public comments? Okay. Being none, we'll move on. We have our rural water update, which Tim was over that. He's not here tonight, but we have somebody here in the audience that is wanting to have some discussion over our rural water. So, if you would you come up, Ms. Pugh? She got up.
Do we have another mic, or? We can share this one.
Just start saying we can share one here.
Sit here.
I'm Judy, and Mr. McLean,
Yes,
you
ma'am.
already have a copy of that.
Yes.
This is just a little synopsis of background and reasons why I'm here.
Thank you.
Okay, I have met with a few people regarding requests for city water on J.E. Sarton Road. And as a background, everyone who lives on J.E. Sarton Road, all of their water comes from a spring. And in 2023, John Daniel dug a 300-plus foot well, but it was a dry hole. J.E. Sarton Road has water on Kathy Ridge Road. I mean, what I'm saying is it's surrounded by city water on Kathy Ridge Road, 16th Model Road, and Roberts Ridge Road. And in October of 2019, Ashley Kraft, who was our alderwoman representing our district, sent a text stating that based on the meetings I've had, these are the lines that were discussed to be installed by December 2020. Cruz Hollow, Panhandle, J.E. Sarton, Lambert Ridge, Sugar Camp, and Bashaw Creek. Now, the reasons for requesting the city water, I'll just skip over some of these. Bathing in water, it's not clear or sanitary. The showers or baths all have to be taken with 1 hour intervals. Toilet tanks are filled with mud, and we're constantly replacing toilet valves. Washing machines, water heaters have to be bought more often than necessary. Washing machine lines are filled with gravel. Only 1 load of laundry can be performed a day. White clothing, after it's washed, it's no longer white. All drinking and cooking water must be purchased, frequently replacing spring water pumps. And my son thought that water was coming, so he put in an above-ground pool, and then it cost him $1,000 to transport water in. So this is basically my reasons for requesting city water. I have met with Mr. Philip Miller, and I met with the water board, and the water board seemed to think that if the county would supply the materials, that everything would be approved. Now, Marshall Harris, I'm not quite sure where he is. He may be out of town on a job, but he has agreed to dig the water line if we can get it all approved.
May I borrow this?
Sure.
How? Well, does anybody have any questions for Ms. Pugh, and I'll backfill you on what we've done.
I was just curious, Marshall Harris, is he a neighbor out there?
He is a property owner.
And so he's willing to do it at no charge?
Well, that's what I'm thinking at this point. Now, we were also informed that we would probably have to get a city engineer to approve a plan, and that's going to cost in the neighborhood of $1,000 or more dollars. So I've been talking with property owners, and several of them have chipped in to cover that cost.
How many properties are we talking about that need water?
Well, there's about 11 or 13 different property owners on that road.
But there's potential to be more in the future, though.
Oh,
possibly.
definitely.
So how
Most-
many feet of line would you need?
I'm not sure. I'm estimating it's about 2 miles. That's an estimate.
Mayor, do you have anything to add on this?
We met a couple of weeks ago, and actually Chairman Hollingsworth was in there also, and told Mrs. Pugh that in the past the county has bought pipe, and we've had, I think we bought about $250,000 worth of pipe 4 or 5 years ago, and I got an inventory of what might remain back in November, and there's none left. But Manchester had a complete accounting of all the pipe. And it had been used in rural projects already. Roberts Ridge Road, Kathy Ridge Road, roads that border her already have water that Manchester City serves that the county has helped lay pipes to. Right now, we don't have any pipe in our inventory. So I asked her to come to this meeting to start the process. And then from here, of course, we'd have to go to some other committees if we decided to do that. But also spoke to Mr. Miller, Philip Miller, right after we met, and also Mr. Harris a couple of times, and he was at that initial meeting with myself and Chairman Hollingsworth. And he is a licensed and bonded excavator, and he did say that he would dig those pipes. And Mr. Miller, Philip Miller, said it is customary for them to allow someone else to dig them. And of course, developers and things, they get their own engineering plans. They're approved by the state, and then Manchester will hook up the pipes. So we got them in touch with St. John Engineering, who they often use in the city of Manchester. So the price we got was ballpark of $1,000 for the engineering study. So they're working on that with their neighborhood. Mr. Miller did say that if we approve it in the county and purchase the pipe, that they could install it as early as sometime in May. And May the 7th is actually the date he gave me as an approximation. So I told her, Mrs. Pugh, that we would need at least that amount of time to be able to go through the proper committees, be able to go through budget and finance if we did this and get it approved.
Capital outlay, too.
Capital outlay, correct, then budget and finance. We would not be able to do it, obviously, in the March meeting, the 12th, but on April the 9th, we could possibly do it. So Manchester said they would do it if we purchased the pipe. Mr. Harris has said he would dig, and the neighborhood had said that they would work on the engineering study. So that's where we are now. I know we had talked about purchasing some more pipe at one time anyway to have an inventory, or at least appropriating some out of our rural fund. So that is where we are here today, and we wanted to start in this process. And we just really would need to look at the map exactly and find out exactly how much is needed. I don't know if it's 2 miles or what it might be, but there's not a lot of distance between where they are now and where there's existing pipes, but I don't know what the terrain is, what might do that. Of course, we're going to run into this more and more and more often in the rural areas, and that's something I want to talk about again under new business, is the need to look at this a little closer. But I asked Mrs. Pugh to come and explain her case to this committee, and wanted to let you guys know that we had talked to the excavator, the engineer, and Manchester City, and everybody's agreed to do their part if the county can provide the materials. That's
So
where we are.
what is the part Manchester's willing to do?
They're willing to hook them up and serve them.
Hook them up by the valves and the taps and everything, or?
Well, they would have to, I'm sure, buy the taps and everything else, but Manchester would actually put it together. We dig the holes and have the pipe laying there. They'll hook it up. But they're not, and that's been customary, my understanding is, on some past projects. Roberts Ridge Road, one being close to them, and some others, that we provide the materials. Somebody else has done the labor and actually hooked them up. And Manchester's not in a good position to do a lot of these projects right now because of their other infrastructure problems. But Philip Miller did say if these other things are done, they'd be able to do this.
And Ms. Pugh, you contacted Manchester City, and the water department said they wasn't interested in running the lines and all that stuff themselves. They needed help with
They
it,
told
right?
me that too. They're absolutely not interested in
All right.
that, yeah. Nothing outside their existing service area right now.
What size lines are we talking about?
I can't answer that. for
So you
right
do
now.
get the engineering, but you're not gonna have enough to do, hydrants, I take it?
I can't answer any of that because this is not my wheelhouse, as I say sometimes. So we would have to find those things out.
Yeah, we need to get with the engineer and see
Yeah,
what the
we'll
engineer
have to get with the
says.
engineer
Yeah.
and find out all those things. But I wanted to try to at least get the process moving, and let this committee know about it and let this committee make a recommendation so we can move it forward. We can always hold it up in budget and finance, or we could hold it up if we need to before it goes to the full commission, which I think the earliest possible to do this correctly would be April anyway. So this is, we thought, the best place to start.
We can come out of this with a recommendation to go to the engineer, find out what we need to know, and then check on the price on the pipe and how much we need. We can go that route, or we can make a motion to send it farther down the line.
Not
Yeah,
this time. not for the
I'd
pipe
kinda like to
replacement.
see some kind of drawings of distances and, number of customers, that sort of thing before I vote. I mean, that's not having to do engineering, just give a ballpark idea of what we're talking about.
Is the group going to approach the engineer on that?
Mr. Harris has tried to contact him. He's waiting on a phone call back from the engineer.
Can Manchester not do their own engineering on this?
But they said typically what they always do is they're not going on this
Typically they
project,
do, I know.
but the same engineer that does theirs typically, but they're going to ask the property owners to do this. And Mr. Miller told me that was customary for them, or a developer or something, to have the neighborhood pay for it one way or the other, instead of them themselves. And that may be something that they do outside the city, or it may just be.
It's done so many different ways.
But,
Depends on what utility districts you're in and that sort of thing.
But we do have time built in, even if we stayed on that schedule, to do all of these things for due diligence. I will help Mr. St. John get a hold of Mr. Harris a little quicker. I think it's been about 2 weeks now, roughly, 10 days or 2 weeks since the contacts were first tried to be made. But I know I talked to Mr. St. John. He was ready to talk to Mr. Harris, and Mr. Harris was ready to talk to St. John. I didn't know they had not talked yet.
If we get
Unless they did today.
if we get a recommendation tonight to approach the engineers to get a exact figure, so that we can always have a special called meeting to speed it up.
Move very quickly, yes, we can.
So I'd entertain a recommendation to do that if somebody wants to make it, to look into the cost on doing this and the engineering. So
I'll make the motion.
we have a motion by Jackie to do that. Do I have a second?
I'll second it, but what I'm seconding is just getting a cost
That's right.
analysis.
Right.
That's
Okay,
right.
yep, I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor? Ayes have it.
Thank you. In the past, I think the county just bought a large amount of pipe and stored it, and that may be something this committee and the commission wants to look at doing also, not only for this project, but maybe ones in the future. Now, 2 miles might eat up a lot of it, but we can still see what it's going to cost, what's in stock, and we may want to get some and warehouse it, or have a tab running where we can do this a little bit quicker for future projects that come up as they come up. But Mrs. Pugh, what their motion basically says is we're going to help you contact the engineer and get a cost analysis quickly. And
And when we get that back, we can have a special call meeting.
we can have a special meeting with a week's notice and move forward from that point. So we need to make sure. I think that's prudent too, that we need to know what we're walking into, obviously, before we get there. And it may be that it's not the full 2 miles too. There may be something else. When you look at a map, it's definitely not 2 miles as the crow flies. But I just, like I said, I don't know the terrain and everything and how it would have to be routed.
But this will end up tying into Manchester's system,
Yes, they will service it, correct.
Yeah, they have
and
a,
that's who they'll pay their bills to.
That is correct.
Would it be feasible to buy up a bunch of pipe right now? I guess if you got a good price on it, prices are going so crazy everywhere, grocery store and everywhere else, but if you found a deal on it, just load up on it.
There
I think
probably
that's-
aren't any deals.
I think that's what's been done in the past is we bought
Yeah.
a certain amount and it was just kind of drawn down as projects went along. But this is the first one I guess we've had in a while that we've actually moved forward like this on. So we can look at all those things when we find out what the price is and obviously there's other streets in that same area that need it. There may be some other interest at that point that could make it economies of scale a little better. And of course, there's going to be other parts of the county that also want this same thing. But since we don't have a rural water update tonight from Mr. Morris, I will tell you that none of the utilities are interested in going outside their existing service area right now, except West Warren Vola, which is nowhere near this lady. And they still need some additional infrastructure as far as water towers where they can even come further north or west. So, but Wartrace, Hillsville, Tullahoma City, Manchester City, none of them are in a position to do anything outside of their service area unless it's funded some other way completely.
I will say that Cruise Hollow, West Warren is close to that.
Okay.
So you might just keep that in mind.
but I think the thing with Cruise Hollows is it's down in the bottom. I think y'all
But-
were up on the top, right?
Well, but what I'm saying is they could be different.
Right.
They are down on the bottom, but so is Panhandle. I mean, I know for a fact West Warren comes all the way down in front of Panhandle, under the interstate, to a house on the corner, and then Cruise Hollow turns to the left.
Okay.
And it would be going up. So there could be some possibilities with West Warren on some of that. I don't know
Okay.
how that works, but
Well, I'm sure whatever is put in the ground to, if we do that to service J.E. Sartain Road, we'll be able to be tied into it at a later date and move forward. But fire hydrants, size of lines, pressures, all that, we'll find out from the engineer. And I'll help you get a hold of Mr. St. John tomorrow.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Pugh.
And you have my numbers. We'll continue to stay in touch. Thank you very much.
All right. Next up on the agenda, we have Summitville Fire here for review.
How are y'all doing?
good.
Assistant Chief Michael Hopkins with Summitville Fire Department. So, to date, we've installed about 25 smoke alarms in our district. Last few years with the extra money from the county, we've purchased a new cascade system, more air bottles, battery-powered pressure fans, lighting, Milwaukee light towers to light up our scenes safer, hoses. I mean, we've upgraded quite a bit in the last 3 years.
Yeah, I think me and the mayor come out and saw your cascade system. That's nice.
Yeah.
You said that y'all were gonna get that, where you could get it mobilized. Is that y'all still doing that, or?
Not at this time. Right now, we're focusing on trucks, equipment, things like that. We just purchased a gear hose dryer, and a new hose washer.
Okay. How about call-wise? What's your calls? You've been running a lot of calls. or-
From the 17th of January till the 10th of February, we ran 17 calls,
Okay.
including NVAs, structure fires, carbon monoxide alarms, all during that ice.
Okay.
We actually mutual aided North Coffee on Roberts Ridge back when that house burned down there. And if it hadn't have been for the lake, with the road conditions, we're a half hour to the nearest hydrant. So,
How about your grants? I know you applied for some grants. Are y'all still You're still in
We
the process of
received
that?
the state grant for volunteer firefighter grant. Somerville Fire was awarded $76,350 to buy new turnout gear.
Hey, while we're speaking about this, I'd like to invite our county grant writer up here. Maybe he has a few things he wants to kind of maybe go over a little bit and just, I don't know if you've had time to meet with him or
Yeah, I
not.
met with him a couple weeks ago.
Are we missing a microphone?
I think we are. Seems like we are.
It does
I'll
seem that
share
way.
mine. Usually I thought there were about,
Six.
probably, can't imagine where it is.
Currently, we're looking at the FEMA grant for more equipment. And also, the Division of Forestry just released a new grant that they will buy skid units for our brush trucks to make us more wildfire ready.
Have y'all applied for that?
No. I was actually fixing to meet with you this week about it.
Yeah, and I do have paperwork on that. I do have paperwork on that today. What I'm basically doing is creating a database for the different departments to where then when grants do come up through their cycles, we can then get together and kind of see what the needs are, and we can start plugging away if so desired for those grants and get the ball rolling basically.
Michael, what would you explain there? What is the skid, so everybody will know what it is?
A skid unit is a 300-gallon tank with a pump that just slides in the back of a truck, a standard 1-ton 4-wheel drive truck, and it pumps just a smaller amount of water, but we're able to go across fields, things like that. We currently have 3 brush units. The one we are looking to replace is off of our 1978 GMC. That was originally one of the original county trucks that were bought. Was a mini pumper. We took the utility bed off, put a flatbed, made it more usable. But it's still running the original tank, and the pump that's on it is, Chief, how old's that pump?
About 8 years.
Pump's older than that.
Is that did you find that grant? Did you already find that?
Yeah, this is the slip-on tanker, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a slip-on tanker grant. They have $5 million set aside for the grant itself. They are narrowing it down to just 25 grants of up to $200,000 apiece. So it's a pretty competitive grant. Right now, they do have a deadline of March 21st to get a letter of intent in. So we're kind of on a deadline as to getting those departments that want to apply for the grant. We need to get that paperwork in. And then the grant itself isn't due until June 4th. Now, the way that particular grant on the slip-on tanker units, once we get that letter of intent in, there may be, 1,000 applicants throughout the U.S. that are applying for these 25 grants. They are then going to invite 25 to send in the next true application. So that's why we need to get on top of this and get those letter of intents.
How many departments have contacted you
I've
about
talked
this?
to, I think, 2 so far that are interested. Talked to Brandon, he mentioned he was gonna send out to the others the information. I do have a copy tonight of the site, the website, for more information, along with a little handout of a couple other grants and their websites and deadlines, as far as their cycles, and the breakdown on the number of grants and the costs, or I shouldn't say costs, but the dollar amounts, to where I can send an electronic version. People can just go ahead and click on the links. Because the main thing for me right now, being new as a grant writer, is just to get the data for each department, to where then I have it available to start plugging in and to get the idea of what is needed for each department. So then we can search the different grants to find out which grant will allow those purchases on equipment and so
And
forth.
this is a full grant, no matching. It's a full grant.
This one is a full grant. Some grants are matching up to a percentage. Others are 100% on their end. So again, that's another thing we have to look at.
If you've got a 300-gallon tank, how long does it take to empty that?
We run 1-inch forestry line, so we can, it makes the water stretch a little further. Just depends on the size of the fire and everything. Norton's Branch Road, about a week and a half ago with North Coffee, we went through 1,000 gallons in 6 hours. Through our brush trucks, just through ours. North Coffee's brush truck flowed about another 600. Plus Hillsborough, New Union, there was quite a bit, there was just about every department in the county was out there.
So you have to make a lot of trips.
Yes, up and down the mountain we did.
But this kind of makes you more mobile than where you can get to hard to get spots, right?
Mhm.
Versus
brush-
something heavy.
Yeah, the brush trucks, I mean, this particular, the engines and tankers really don't need to go off the road. They need to stay on solid ground. Stick one of those, it's a lot harder to get them out than a four-wheel drive pickup truck.
Do you think the odds of us getting this, if we have 3 or 4 departments getting this, is pretty good?
Well, you never know until you try. So we just need to make the effort, and that's the key.
Okay.
Is get our paperwork in and see where it goes. And every cycle, we just need to keep plugging away. And to me, that's the key. If you don't apply, you don't have a chance.
Most they can tell us is no.
Correct.
Right.
Now, I do have my cards, they are in, and I am asking that each of the departments send me an email contact so I can get these electronic versions out to everyone, so they can start looking at some of these grants and giving me that information so I can build that database.
Okay. Anybody have any more questions for him?
I do have one question for y'all. With all this infrastructure coming in, you know, we're talking about putting water lines out, Roberts Ridge and all that. Where would we go about getting an ordinance to where we could get hydrants to meet the water flow we need?
I think actually that would probably come out of this committee with a recommendation to go to capital outlay. Is that not correct, Mayor?
I would think so. That would be proper chain since we're here.
Hydrants are, like I said, Roberts Ridge, if it hadn't been for Normandy Lake that being a mile away, that would have been a lot worse.
You know, Tim Morris, he's the guy on this committee that kind of looks into that stuff, and he's actually been working on that, but he's in the hospital sick, but I mean, we can get with him. He's actually looked at, I think, Roseanne, y'all had like 6 hydrants down at Beach Grove that he's actually actively working on now, so
Yep.
we can see how that works
Tim,
with, you
Tim
know.
really knows. I don't know anything about it really, but I do know that the discussion about hydrants and making them active working is definitely needed.
And more in the proper, and getting the proper water flow out in the county. I mean, because when we're trekking 4, 5, 6 miles back just to get to hit a hydrant to get water back to the fire.
Michael, we'll check into that. We'll see how Tim gets, and, you know, we'll check in with that and see if we can get on that, you know.
Okay.
That'll be something we,
And I have a question for you, Mayor.
Sure.
On bridges, are lanes considered the property owner's problem or the county's problem?
Okay, on a bridge, like
On a private lane?
a bridge on private land, I guess would be the property owners.
Okay.
I mean, it would be my understanding, like a driveway bridge.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would think it's property owners. I mean, they have to
Okay.
build it, they have to maintain it, so it'd be theirs.
Okay, because we've got one in our district that we've let them know we can't give them fire protection because we can't cross it.
Yeah.
It's not even safe to put a car on.
Yeah, I mean, you can go as far as you can safely go on their driveway. A county road's different, state road's different, but if it goes in off a county right away into their property, it's going to be their own.
Okay.
Because we don't maintain it, we can't. We don't know its safety. You would know that better, being in your fire district like that. So
Yeah, we've been out there evaluating it several times, and we want to put a pickup truck on it.
okay, I think that's correct. That would be my take on it.
okay. All right, anything else? Anybody else, any more
If you need
questions?
something further on that, you holler at me.
I will.
Any more questions for him? Okay, all right, guys, appreciate you coming up here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll, Michael, we'll work on that hydrant thing for you, okay?
I mean, it's just with the infrastructure coming in, we might as well get ahead of the ball and get something in place. because the houses are just gonna get closer and closer together.
Okay, next up on the docket, we have animal control. I like to combine 7 and 8 together, because we have Craig here. We can do animal control and the discussion of the new animal shelter at the same time, if that's okay with everyone.
That's okay with me.
Okay, Craig?
Sir. It's just the numbers from last year totaled up.
Is that for the whole year? Because at the top it says the month. For the year.
What's the difference really between adopted public and adopted rescue?
The ones adopted rescue, those are the ones that,
Come
They
far
s-
away?
yeah, most of them end up going up north.
Craig, what all does the fees, what does that consist of? I guess you have
Just-
$7,277 here?
Adoption fees, reclaim fees, and donations.
Okay.
Were the euthanized dogs you just couldn't put with anybody?
Yeah, they're either dog aggressive, people aggressive, or some of them are vet recommendations because they're too sick, or things along those lines. We're fortunate we haven't had to euthanize any just purely healthy dogs that are adoptable. So.
So it doesn't seem like you have a real cat problem then, huh?
It's there.
We do, we're just not addressing it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I know my sister feeds about everyone in my neighborhood, in her neighborhood.
Yeah, we have hundreds and hundreds of cats out there.
Was obligated to take care of them.
My next problem, I lost an officer because of money. They're not being able to make ends meet right now. And the way we're set up, we're on call. We rotate that schedule. They can't even get a part-time job to help supplement to make ends meet. So I kind of put together what surrounding animal control is making and what we're making.
The employee you lost, was that a full-time or a part-time?
Full-time.
Full-time?
And we're posting the job, and today was the last day that we're taking applications for the job. What I was hoping to do is be able to increase that rate to, we're far behind everybody else.
Are there any real requirements to fulfill one of these jobs?
Not really, but everybody I've had has had experience. They're, like, the one that just quit, she was a licensed vet tech. It was very, very helpful.
The reason I was asking because my church is running a homeless shelter right now, and some nice people come through there.
Mhm.
I'm wondering, and I know one guy, I think he's cooking at Captain D's somewhere, like that, and they can't make enough money to meet their ends like your person does.
Right.
I was just wondering, if some of these people could get back on their feet through something like this.
Right. The thing with this one is, like these officers, it takes months to get somebody trained where you can just turn them
Okay,
loose
yeah.
on their own. And if we can raise the money, what I'd like to also do is like Bedford County, like when these people get certified as officers, they give them a bump in pay. Every certification they get there, they get another bump in pay.
We're just doing some rough math on 3 full-time folks and a part-time. Your fees and everything could justify up to $1 an hour right away
Right.
if your fees just went out there.
And see, the way the full-time here, the 1638, that's the girl, she's been there almost 2 years. She came on at 15, but she was there during the bumps in pay that went countywide. That's why the other girl, she was at $15 an hour. She didn't get all those bumps in pay because when she started.
So the base starting pay is 15.
Mhm.
Okay.
And then my part-time, it's $2,000 a year, so that equates to about 2.64 hours a week is all she can work, money-wise, for our budget.
What can they do in 2.64
Well,
hours?
luckily, she's a police officer in Shelbyville, so,
I
they
wouldn't
have-
think they'd even show up
no, and she's third.
2 hours.
No, she don't, but she's third shift also, so they have trainings and stuff during the day most of the time. And, like, one week she'll show up for 4 hours, the next she may show up for 8, and then there may be a week where she can't show up because of her schedule and trainings and stuff like that.
So now you're down to 2 full-time?
Me and one other who is 5 months pregnant, so I'll be losing her in about 2 to 3 months, so I'll be on my own at that point if we don't get somebody else in there.
So what do you recommend? I mean, obviously it's budget time and we want to look at additional raises anyway that would be, across the board up. But you're saying your folks your starting pay needs to be higher
I was
in it,
hoping,
in addition to everything else.
yeah, I mean, I was hoping to see the starting pay around 17, which is still lower than everybody else around us. But I would like to include, once they're certified, they do get that bump in pay, gives them something to work towards.
So that would be 6,000 hours a year for your 3 full-time. You part-time, that would be, you've got 150 hours or so, 160 hours a year for them. So that would be 320.
So you heard your pay, you're figuring 40 hours,
Mhm.
but any calls are all overtime, right?
Right.
And you're saying you want to get it up, you want to get that up to 17, is what
I
you're
would
saying?
like the starting pay to be about 17, which is still lower than everybody else.
Well, I mean, if your fees are added in here, I mean, that's like the mayor said, that's going to get it up $1. It's going to get you to 1738, right?
For her, but the other one.
The starting's 15. She's
She's
already
been there 2 years.
Okay.
been in
Yeah.
the system. Rough math, once again, if we just did the full-time on the math, it's $12,000 a year for get up to 17 an hour.
Which that don't include me, that's just 2 people. I won't be included in that figure.
The 3 full-time does include you?
Mhm.
It does not?
It does include me.
Yeah, that's what I,
Yeah,
at
okay.
3 full-time at 2,000 hours a year, which is roughly
Okay, yeah.
full employment, then that's 12,000. If you did $2 an hour up. Your fees collected, of course, they go into the general fund,
Mhm.
obviously. So that would be about,
The donations don't though.
the donations don't.
No.
Okay. All right. So roughly it'd be $8,000 to $12,000 probably additional out of the general fund to animal control a year, which I think is not much for where they're headed.
The one I just lost over May, I mean, she was a valuable
Yeah.
employee. Who didn't want to leave, so.
So he's requesting a correction in addition to whatever else we might do countywide this year.
I guess we need a recommendation from this board to send it to Budget and Finance for what he's requesting, right?
We would need to do that, yes. And I think we need to do it. I think we're going to have to modernize our entire process over there. And that includes better pay and better people that can stay longer. And so it'd be the will of this committee.
So I'm hoping if I'm entertaining a motion for
I'll entertain a
recommendation.
motion. 17 to $17.
Okay. Jackie has a motion on the table. Do I hear a second on that?
Let me interject. Would the motion be, I mean, we don't, we're not in charge of pay, are we?
No, we're just, we're just have a favorable
We'll
recommendation
recommend
to
that
send
this
it to
go
Budget and
to
Finance.
Budget and Finance.
Right.
Would that be the?
Yeah.
So do you want to say your motion again?
Okay. I'll make a recommendation that we submit to Budget and Finance a starting pay of $17 for, animal control per hour per full-time employee.
Do these employees have to go to the shelter to get a vehicle, or do they go back and forth to their home?
If they're on call, I mean, we do drive the truck home, which everybody lives inside Coffee County, so it's, but we don't always do that though, cause it's a headache, cause if you drive that truck home, then you need to do something at home, and you don't have another vehicle, you can't. So most of the time we don't drive it home, but the option is there if you're on call.
So, do you have somebody on call all the time?
24/7.
But unlike Bedford, you don't have a set amount for being on call.
No, theirs is, they get overtime plus it's $25 a day for being on call, $50 on the weekends.
Okay.
It's just an inconvenience, cause it's an inconvenience, you can't hop in the car and go to Murfreesboro, you gotta be glued. You
They're
gotta be
the
able to
only ones that
respond.
are doing out of this list.
Out of this list, yeah.
How much weekend? You said $25 a day for,
They do 25 during the week and 50 on weekends.
And they're gonna do that every 3 weeks? If you got 3
Well,
employees?
that would be well, it's just for one employee, but that's every week. I mean, they pay that out.
Yeah, but I mean,
It's
one of
just
the
one
3
Mhm. Yeah,
will be doing on standby.
yeah,
Gets old pretty fast.
it does.
Okay, we have a motion on the table. Do we have a second to send that over to Budget and Finance for consideration?
I'll make a second the motion to send it over to Budget and Finance.
We have a second to send it over to Budget and Finance. From Ms. Smith. All in favor? Aye. Ayes have it. All righty, so while we're here with our animal control, let's have some discussion. We have Craig and the mayor here on the new animal shelter, so any questions that needs answered, just feel free to ask.
I do have another question. What is the criteria for someone deciding to go out? If it's a dog that's a menace or just running loose?
Probably 99% of the time, the call comes from the sheriff's department needing some assistance with something. It's whether it's a dog bite or they've arrested somebody, and for some reason, people get arrested all the time and they have their dog with them. So, yeah, 99% of it's through the sheriff's department needing help, or state troopers will reach out sometimes. It's very rarely is it something that just comes directly to us.
Yeah, I
We're
would
going
assume
out.
it wouldn't just cause somebody reported the dog running
Yeah,
loose.
yeah, we don't.
You
do
wouldn't
that.
run on those after hours.
No, we'd never get any sleep if we did.
No.
So yeah, it's always like a mutual aid type deals when we're getting called.
So how often would you think typically in a week?
Well, I think we have 57 last year total, but sometimes, I mean, it's, there's some weeks, I mean, you may have 4 or 5, or. I've
And
had
some
'em-
weeks none.
I've had them where you've had, 10 in a week's time. You have 2 or 3 a night sometimes. You never can tell. You don't know what time it's gonna be.
So, I just wanna, this is confusing me. Under Coffee County, it says, 3 full-time, 1 part-time.
Mhm.
But you are considered in that.
Yes.
And then, down here, they've broken it down to 1 manager. So really, you're the manager, right?
Yeah.
And 2
And-
employees.
And you have 2 full-time
Mhm.
employees. And so y'all each just take turns on call.
Mhm.
like every day? It rotates?
When the three of us were doing it, we would just do a week on, and
Oh, okay.
so you was on call
All right.
once every
3
yeah,
weeks.
Third
3 weeks.
week.
But when it's just two people, we do 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, because if you do a week, it just seems like you're falling right back. Don't seem like you're getting a break. So
I see.
we do 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off.
Craig, how's the vehicles over there? Is everything in good shape, holding up good?
It's good. Our main truck, the miles are, it's getting up around 170,000. Our newest one. I know Rick with maintenance, he's got another truck that he's offered us. We're gonna look into taking it in. I mean, we're getting by. I mean, they're good running trucks. It's just they're not gonna last forever
Right.
for the amount of miles that we put on the things.
Well, unlike the police, you're not just driving around looking.
No,
You're
we're
looking
not,
for-
no, but we get enough calls that we're on the road.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
constant.
Do you feel the public should be educated on when to call animal control? That's what I see. I see
Yeah,
a lot
it's,
of the people that have moved in here especially, they're used to a different situation. I see it a lot. People just say, well, call animal control, and
They jump the gun. They do.
yeah,
A lot.
okay. I just think that's worth mentioning that.
It is, and that's part of the headache for us because some places are 30 minutes from the shelter, and we've drove all that distance for something that didn't even put,
Just a
that's
dog
an hour.
running loose.
Yeah,
Just let it be for,
If
until
it's not causing a problem.
it's not causing a problem, and we've just taken an hour round trip just to drive out there. So it gets aggravating, but
I'd say in the county, most of them are running loose.
it's more than we can keep up with.
So do people bring the dogs to you typically?
Occasionally, not very often.
Okay,
Most
usually
times.
you have to pick them up.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when we get moved over to the new facility, whenever that is, you foresee one manager and 2 full-time employees being adequate?
No, we could use more than that right now. We can't stay caught up where we're at right now. If I had one more full-time, we would be well-rounded. We'd be able to cover everything like we should. Because, there's more than just going out on the road. We got to take care of the dogs at shelter. We got to get photos to try to advertise and get the dogs.
What if you had volunteers?
Volunteers would help to an extent, yeah, definitely.
I keep hearing that, there'll be volunteers. We can have volunteers with this new facility. So
Oh, it would, yeah.
it would be worth mentioning that someone in the community that feels strongly about this should consider volunteering their time to manage the volunteers at their cost, because people do it. I went to Bedford County and was so impressed with their 65 volunteers for a dog rescue, and I mean, it's like clockwork. So,
Yeah. The people are there, just allowing them to come in and actually do the work is, we can't do anything where we're at right now.
right, that's my point.
Yeah.
So, would it be wrong to think that let's not focus on hiring another full-time person, but to focus on somehow incorporating volunteers? And I know that's a pain in the rear to think about volunteers, but there's got to be somebody willing to do that, to say, hey,
Yeah,
I'll handle it. But I hope enough people listen to these meetings. I'm sure they
Oh, yeah.
don't, but that they'd say, I'd like to go do that.
yeah, I mean, it's gonna be helpful, but still the extra person is gonna,
We're still gonna have to have a
Yeah,
full-time
it's-
county employee at the shelter at all times when
yeah,
it's
I mean,
open.
the amount of
Yeah.
calls,
24 hours a day?
No, when it's open.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
'cause we cannot keep up right now, and it's getting worse too. It's like we ended, 685 dogs last year, and January we took in 85. We're already over 120 for the year so far. It's
You remember, it hasn't been that long ago, several years ago, but I think you remember that that volunteers were running over each other trying to get to help over there with the animals. And for some reason, that we couldn't allow it, the council would not allow it. said there was a liability and it would be a big, problem and everything, and they beat that down, but people were running over each other trying to get to be volunteers.
Oh, we get calls weekly with people wanting
Yeah,
to
so I
help out
think
and
that,
volunteer, and
yeah,
our kids getting their credits for college and
yeah,
stuff like that.
yeah,
I mean,
that
we
Tennessee
get that
Promise, that's
constantly.
what you do, volunteer and get considered there and get your credits.
Yeah.
But I know several organizations, we were overrun with organizations at the time, a few years ago, and they were everybody's wanting to volunteer and just wouldn't let them in there.
Well, will that change?
When we get into our own place?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, oh, definitely.
So they will allow, there won't be some stipulation that says
No, we'll-
liability?
I think,
Yeah,
Ed's already
Ed's working on the waivers to be able to do that, and the way we're bifurcating the shelter to have, one side nothing but quarantine and one side open to the public, we'll have half of the shelter for sure will be able to be manned by volunteers quite a bit. They'll still have to be coordinated though and scheduled somehow, and whether we can get a volunteer coordinator scheduler, that will take a little time to work into also. That would be ideal.
you still need a paid employee there.
We would have to have a
Yeah.
full-time paid employee
Yeah.
there because it's a county facility to manage it and oversee it. But I'm sure, like you guys say, there's a lot of volunteers that want to work. The key is keeping any superfluous activity to a minimum, making sure the volunteers that are there are actually working and showing up and being effective. So we have to build some kind of infrastructure to make sure that happens. And whether that's allowing as many, so many a day, or having kind of like a volunteer fire department might having 25, and then using that core group, and then when one rolls off, one can roll back on. Just, it's things we'll have to build.
Well, do we still have a large number of animal groups like we used to have? I know there were probably 4 or 5, but
The rescue groups,
no, I'm just animal control groups like Humane Society, and there was 2 or 3 other people that used to come to meetings all the time that had
oh yeah, they're still around.
animal
Yeah.
groups. And they're very concerned about the animals, but they never could get along with each other. The people couldn't.
Now, everybody's pretty well on the same page now.
I believe that too. I believe folks are on the same sheet of music much more, but that's another reason for having a sophisticated volunteer program, so it's effective and it doesn't turn into a nightmare.
We mentioned the $7,000 in fees, and I'm not knocking anything about pay or anything else, but if you just factor in overtime, I suspect that's way more than the fees. Just the people having to run on a standby.
You mean, hiring another person would cut out the overtime?
No, I didn't say that.
Okay. What did you say?
I just said, we were talking about the 7,000 in fees. If we use that as $1 an hour, you can use it anywhere you want to use it. But all I'm saying is, you've really already spent that money on overtime, because you're not just looking at pay. Because that's not straight time pay, because I know they're going to have to have calls.
What's your
and
overtime situation
overtime.
like usually? I mean, how do you pay, and is there an average number of hours? Are you getting overtime?
Yeah, there's weekly overtime.
Okay.
I mean, there's,
I'm certain. On a 24-hour job, it's going to be overtime.
oh yeah, and being shorthanded and not being, we've got days that we have to work over too. If it's end day and we gotta run to Lakewood, you're looking at an hour just driving just to go take care of that. So
Speaking of Lakewood, how many of your calls out are there?
it's not been as bad here lately.
Good.
It just kinda goes in waves out there. And we gotta be careful too, because that summer we get the bogus calls, and we have drove into Lakewood and came back out with 10 dogs on the truck where we've got them shoved everywhere,
Usually when you get a call from Lakewood, it's usually a deputy call mostly,
Most of
isn't
the
it?
time, yeah.
Okay, and they can kind of communicate with him to see if it's bogus or not, right? Okay. All right, we don't have any more questions for Craig. I'd like to ask the mayor. Mayor, could you give us an update on the shelter and where we're at and what we're doing?
Sure, Aaron, do you want to come up here in case we have some direct questions for you, please? Craig and Aaron and I and another gentleman. Who was the other guy we met with?
Mr. Brett Cook. He's our mechanical plumbing.
Mechanical
electrical
plumbing engineer. We met to go over some just preliminary things, and just looked at ways we can try to cut some cost, obviously. Slim down some roof lines, consolidated maybe how some of the HVAC systems are going to go. I went right after our meeting to Franklin County and looked at their blueprints for their plan to see. Our ventilation's pretty expensive the way we have it planned right now. And incidentally, Franklin County's just using 2 HVAC units. They're not using the
DOAS system.
the DOAS system. So we can look at maybe some savings there and turn that back into a little bit more robust facility. We also looked at, we talked about having some temperate outdoor kennels that could be used 8 to 10 months a year, that would also provide shelter from the sun and the rain to allow us more runs. So we had a very productive meeting, and Greg had some great insight on how to route a few things into there. But if you'll notice, it's kind of split into two categories. One area is roughly going to be for the public. One area is going to be for your strays, and then part of that 4 or 5 runs is going to be just for strictly your quarantine area. And of course, that needs to be segregated from everything else, so we don't spread diseases and things. We're trying to figure out exactly the best ventilation system for that is also as economical as possible. We have areas for staff. We have public restrooms. We have private restrooms for the staff. We have Sally Port, which is front left of your drawing there. You have the various runs. You have storage areas, grooming areas, exam rooms. So everything's been laid out there. We're talking about materials, what type of materials we can use and be able to afford. I know Mr. Kapka is looking at, and I met with Walmart Foundation last week. They would like to try to help us a little bit, maybe as much as $5,000 probably. But we're looking at a lot of different areas like that to help get additional monies, or to either buy gates or buy more runs, or to staff a exam room with equipment, stock an exam room with equipment. So we're getting down in the weeds now on materials, square footage, ventilation, roof pitch, roof type, et cetera. And is that kind of what you think, Aaron?
Yes, sir. Yeah, no, you nailed it. Like you said, it's looking at project budget and then trying to design to that budget. Obviously, we have the needs. We've got the needs. The requirements are noted. It's just trying to find that balance point of meeting those needs while still maintaining that budget. I know, based on discussions with Craig, I know, what we're looking at right now is short as far as the number of runs. So if there's some more money that's found, I know Mr. Mayor was trying to hunt down some more money. If there's some more money that's found with the design the way it is, it's a modular system, so it could be expanded. So if that magic number is 40 runs, if it's 38 runs, like we can push and play with it, and it's relatively economical. Again, like he said, starting looking at materiality. Obviously durability is key. We want to build this facility to last. We want to try to make Craig's and his staff's life much easier. Daily cleanings, if we can make those easier, if we can make them take 30 minutes less. 30 minutes over the lifetime of that facility is going to add up to quite a substantial sum. So that's kind of where we're at right now. Like Mr. Mayor said, looking at surrounding areas, looking at their facilities, looking at the prices that they've got on those facilities. So it's all factoring into it.
Energy efficiency, because
Absolutely.
That's operating costs, or we don't want them to skyrocket.
Absolutely, energy efficiency. And then animal care, obviously, is a big priority. We want animals to be well taken care of. We want staff to be able to function in the facility, safely. We want it to be efficient, and we want to plan for future growth because Coffee County's growing. We all know that. So if we plan for it day one, hopefully day two, whenever we get ready to expand, it's a relatively painless process.
When we first thought about this several years ago, we were trying to get something, we've been trying to get something going for a long time, a new animal shelter, but I'm glad Mayor came right in and just went right to work and did it for us. But anyway, we had considered, I thought about it for a long time, getting Bonnaroo involved in it, maybe name something after a Bonnaroo room or something, for if they wanted to make a good donation, I don't know whether that would be feasible or not.
Well, we're asking everybody, and of course, naming rooms, naming
Yeah.
runs, anything like that is absolutely on the table.
Good,
To be
okay.
able to, whether somebody wants to,
Yeah.
I've talked to funeral homes about, folks that are passing away where they can donate money. I've spoken to nearly every lawyer in the county about when they do wills and things of that nature to be able to make sure it's on everybody's radar. I know, like I said, Mr. Kapka's and I, we've looked at about a dozen different public and private grants. Most of them are pretty small for animal shelters. We're looking at some infrastructure grants that could be earmarked for this. So we're looking at various ways that we can maximize this.
I'm not able to read all this, but I'm guessing there's not any medical facilities here. Everything done for an animal is taken to the vet.
There is an exam room kind of in the
Okay.
middle. If you look,
Where is it?
if you look from, it's right here.
Okay.
It will be able to be used. There's also an intake room here where initial weights and exams will be done right outside the Sally Port. And one thing I'm talking to some area vets and talking to some folks about is the ability to have a dedicated room on here that would be for spay,
I
neuter,
was wondering that.
chip, and things like that.
They
And
wouldn't have to be carrying them back and forth.
right in, well, we would be able to have clinics that way there, maybe one day a
Right.
month, 2 days a month, where the public could do that, or we could do the animals that we had. So what I'm trying to do is get the money to add that room on and also get the equipment in there so that a vet or a vet tech could just show up, plug in, do their thing, and then we could tidy up after they left. And they could do various procedures there. So I think all that's in the cards. If you look at everything on the back side of this, that's all the modular potential coming out the back.
Oh, okay.
So.
Craig might decide to be a surgeon in there.
But there's laundry facility, there's exam rooms, there's food prep area, there's storage, there's intake rooms, there's offices, a director's office, storage, public restroom, private restroom, there's a grooming area, there's a break room, there's a mechanical room, there's a room for folks to be able to interact with the animals. Of course, we're gonna have some outdoor fenced-in areas where folks can take the animals out, but that'd be a great thing for volunteers to do, move them around. We're also talking about maybe 8 or 10 to 12 runs outside that could be used 8 to 10 months a year. They could be not during extreme weather, but if it's going to be between 55 and 85 type temperatures, then we could have an overflow area out there for.
I think
that
in
too.
Tullahoma, they've got a fenced-in area. They can just let the dogs
Right.
exercise for a while.
We've got plenty of room for those areas. The
I
space is
assume
not a
there
problem.
was.
Yep. Space is not a problem for that. Of course, being on a main road like that, we got to make sure that if a dog does get loose temporarily,
Yeah.
it's not going to go straight onto the 4-lane, which it will be 4-lane in a few years. So we're designing all that.
Mayor, are we still pretty solid with our anonymous donors? Are we good shape with them?
Mhm. Yep.
Okay.
They have reconfirmed as of 3 weeks ago. So.
Okay.
I have a question. I don't know a whole lot about the expense. So when somebody adopts a dog, does that include spay and neutering? And that is a part of that fee?
Yes,
It covers it?
it don't cover it, no, but nobody does as far as animal controls, some of them do.
So do you rotate through veterinarians?
We use Coffee Vet right now, which he gives us the biggest discount in town, and
Okay.
don't have to make appointments. I can call him and he'll say bring it on. So
Oh, that's awesome.
yeah,
It's much more difficult today to get a vet to be able to volunteer as much simply because they're so covered up.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so many domestic animals now that are, in people's houses and lives now that it's become quite an industry. And it's very difficult for a vet to be able to peel a lot of resources off for charity work, especially one individual vet. So
I did a little study myself on trying to find out how much it costs to get a cat spayed or neutered. And I had to go outside the county because there's no veterinarian in this county that was affordable for a stray cat to go ahead and get it. And then to get rabies shots, I couldn't find, I hope I'm wrong and I hope somebody calls tomorrow, but I could not find anybody who would just do a rabies shot without an office visit, which adds up to well up around $100. So when you say people don't go get their rabies shots, that's why.
Tractor Supply has clinics nearly every month in each city that will do them just rabies shots only, very, very cheap.
You'd call my sister,
Well,
she's
I,
had half the cats in the neighborhood.
well, me too, but I was just doing a little study, and it would be nice if we were affordable in this county, but
Yeah.
I know the veterinarians are covered up.
They are, they are.
Okay. Any more questions for Craig or the mayor on the facility or animal control or anything?
In this phase two, and where will that sit? Off to the side?
Plug right into the
Straight out
back,
the rear.
Oh, in the back.
right in the
Yes,
back
sir.
where you see the subdued
Okay.
areas coming off of the drawing on your left side. You'll see some subdued areas in the back, at the top of the page. That is where it'll be built out that way.
Aaron, the way this drawing is this the way it's gonna sit on the lot? Is this to the left, is that the east, and is that to the west?
Highway 41 would be out in front of the building, kind of at the bottom of your page there as you're looking at it.
Okay.
And then, like the mayor was saying, the future phase 2 would be tacked onto the rear of the facility. Which
We had talked about prevailing winds and things like that, making sure that we took maximum advantage of that. Of course, we have very limited shade too.
Sure.
Right now, but
The proposed runs that you wanna have outside, that's gonna be to the east of the building, right?
I would anticipate it would be some on both sides.
yeah, we
Where-
haven't gotten
where
that far
possible.
yet to where we would actually locate those. We're just talking about those.
Now, one of the things that we want to factor in is, some secure parking for Craig's vehicles, both county vehicles and staff vehicles. One, keeping those protected somewhat, at least behind a fence, and then keeping the dogs away from them so they're not chewing on their tires or something like that. But, so yeah, the site development, we've got a nice piece of property. It's got kind of a linear orientation from off of Highway 41 traveling to the back. So trying to maximize the site, laying out the building to try to maximize the site and get the most that we can out of the property in the future.
Yeah, I've asked Craig, maybe we'll try to go this week let's go out there and, Aaron, maybe you can meet us too, if not this week. But we want to do a walkthrough and start looking at some of those things, exactly how it's going to lay as we look at materials. And
What
too.
day? Do you know what day you're gonna?
we haven't
try to
picked a day yet. I'd asked him to get with me on when's a good day for you to be able to meet out there and walk. But
Just any time, just
okay, we'll nail something down. I'll holler at you the next day or two, and then
Okay.
we can let the rest of the members know if they want to come, commissioners.
All righty. Any more questions? If not, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Oh,
Motion by Jackie.
if we
hold
could,
up.
we want to talk about the study committee real quick. If I can just bring it up.
Okay, yeah.
Sorry. Once again, getting back to water and wastewater and fire protection and everything else, we know that there's no cavalry coming for potable water, wastewater, anything out in the rural areas. I've been to several other counties and looked at how they're handling this and how they've handled it in the past, especially some higher growth counties. Rutherford County is probably the best example. Franklin County's put sewer out to all their smaller cities already. But I would like to entertain commissioning an ad hoc committee. Strategic development has done a lot, but this would be a specialized committee that would perhaps have one or two members of this committee, one or two members from capital outlay, somebody from budget, and maybe somebody from strategic planning to look at water and wastewater in the rural areas for 6 months, to look at different options that we would have for developments in the future to be able to serve them with wastewater, how we're going to interact with other communities to be able to get potable water, and like the chief said, get fire hydrants that are serviceable out in the rural areas. Rutherford County ran into the same problem, and it really kicked their tail until they finally got into step systems and drip systems, much like we do at Wayside and North Coffee and in our rural schools. So I would just like to run it past this committee as we move forward to talk about putting this group together, maybe 5 commissioners and maybe 4 citizens that had some expertise in this area, and study this issue for 6 months and come to us with some recommendations on how we need to proceed to start planning and standing some things up to serve our rural areas, because we know Manchester and Tullahoma are not going to be able to do any wastewater out in the rural areas. We know we've got a lot of subdivisions that will spring up or need to spring up. We know that getting potable water out from anybody quickly, other than maybe West Warren, is going to be very difficult. So to be able to identify cost, identify high growth areas, planning once again, look at some things and start getting an idea of cost, timelines, benefits, negatives, everything else on those very important utilities. And we have electricity, we're getting broadband out everywhere, but we do not have water and wastewater for our rural folks at all. We've got a lot of wells that aren't working. People are digging wells and they're not working. People are overtaxing them. We're not going to be able to run another 10,000 people that are going to move into this county in the next 7 or 8 years. Not everybody's going to be able to keep digging septic tanks and septic tanks. We're going to have some serious problems. The county could potentially make a lot of revenue off drip and step systems, and then build them to one day actually tie into a sewer system too. So I want to be able to study those things and get some professional opinions on those and come up with a report to the commission. So that's kind of where I am. And we have some expertise on the commission, and we have some citizens out here that also know a lot about it, but combining all those things, maybe having a meeting every couple of weeks for 6 months to come up with a comprehensive white paper on this, much like a strategic planning did. I think it's time we look at that stuff.
I think that's a great idea, because we can't keep putting septic tanks all over this county. We are going to ruin the groundwater. I think that's a great idea. I think that's something in need. It was needed 10 years ago. So I think that's a great idea.
And all I'm saying right now is I'd like to get this. This is the start of the whole thing. Is talking to this committee, for you to just get your approval for me to take it to the next level, which maybe take it to capital outlay. Let them say, yeah, we'll put 1 or 2 of our people on it, and then we don't need to appropriate any money at all for it right now. It's just obviously, but it's to come up with some costs. It's to come up with some financing. There's a lot of financing out there that to be able to build drip and step systems. County could operate them and create quite a bit of revenue off of those things in the future. But we could potentially decrease lot sizes that way. We could have some more subdivisions that could pop up in our rural areas a little bit easier than they're going to be needed. And so that's what this is. It's an introductory. I'd like to be able to talk about it a little bit more.
That being said, I'd entertain a motion for this to be sent to capital outlay to be studied and move forward from there.
And eventually, I would like to, at a full commission meeting in the future, be able to commission this committee to do this task and give them 6 months to be able to do it.
You make the motion. I'll make the motion if that's what we need.
What is the
You
motion?
made the motion.
Make a motion to send it to capital outlay
Capital outlay.
For further discussion.
for further discussion.
So this committee is not gonna work on it?
No, this committee would have a couple people on it, yes. It would be a holistic thing, unless this committee wants to do it exclusively.
No, I don't mean exclusive. I was just thinking, why not all 5 of us
I think you think.
and work with whoever?
Yeah, you wouldn't want 1 or 2 from each committee. to
Yeah, I was gonna maybe this committee we can do anything still. This is just because I thought of it, obviously doesn't mean it has to happen, but in my mind, I thought maybe a couple from here, a couple from capital outlay, and maybe somebody from budget. So we had a pretty broad group of folks within the full commission that were looking at it. And then collaborate with folks, pick 4 citizens that could help us on this, and then bring in utilities, bring in folks like the Consolidated Utility District for Other County, and bring in some of the Franklin County's systems, bring in some third-party vendors that set these things up and operate them for counties already.
It kind of sounds like the utilities are not too eager.
They can't.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, they can't.
So-
It's not that they're not eager, they've told me they can't.
Physically or financially or what?
Financially, bylaws, there's no willingness to do it right now. It's not
That's what I
there.
thought.
And the expense of it could be so far out.
I was gonna say, so where do you start?
We just have to start. We have to start figuring out what our different options are.
Without those utilities though, you get nowhere.
It's not true, because we can stand up our own step systems and drip systems and run them just like we did with our.
Well, the water and all that's gotta come from somewhere.
And hook them up,
That's why we
and
have-
hook them up in the future, so when the municipalities grow enough, they could maybe eventually hook up to them.
We'll figure it
Jackie, you got,
Sounds like you got a plan.
out. Plan, buddy.
Jackie, you got your motion still, you got a motion on the table?
Oh, yeah, I made a motion, yeah.
All right, Jackie's made a motion to send it over to capital
Send it to
outlay for
capital
further
outlay.
discussion. Anybody want to second that, to send it over there?
This will be a vote by the full commission to do this, to start it anyway, so I just wanna get everybody's buy-in before we get up there.
I'll second it.
Roseanne seconds motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it.
And we'll study hydrants at the same time, you know, the need for those and pressures. We can do all those things together, 'cause they'll tie in together.
All right, motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
The motion, need a second?
Second.
And a second, all in favor?
Aye.
All in favor, stand up.
Thank you.